All right, awesome. Okay, today's gonna be a little different. We're gonna go over the patch rundown, see exactly what's going on here. Uh, really excited to see what they've changed, but at the same time, I know that it was in a pretty good spot for the type of game I like to play, and I know there's a lot of changes. So um, a lot of this is subject to change still, but I think there are some pretty big changes that might have a decent effect on the meta and how everything's gonna be going. So. Um, First off, I really want to pay attention and focus on these new items. I think they're going to be um, quite a difference maker. I think a lot of people are going to start building and focusing on different starting items just because of the changes that were made. Especially Zeke's Herald. I think that building those, like stacking Zeke's Herald, is going to be insane. But we'll have to see. We'll have to do some testing for sure. All right, new Xerath, 5 cost. Like Sorcerer or Darkstar needed another champion, but they decided to go for it anyway. So I think that like Darkstar or Sorcerer is now just really, really consistent. Even if you can't get one of maybe the ones you wanted or a lot of the Sorcerer or Darkstar, you could just buy Sorcerers and Darkstars and eventually pivot one way or another. And then eventually you'll get that 5 cost, and then you'll just blow up. Um, so I think it's going to be really good. I've also heard that because Xerath scales with attack speed, actually, where'd that go? Oh, sorry. Because he scales with attack speed and he already has a lot of attack speed, because his ability is basically his auto attacks become bombs. Like imagine Ziggs bombs, I would assume. And then once they destroy one enemy, then they just start stunning people that area when it kills someone, so it does extra damage, um, which is interesting. So I think it could really pop off if you have a comp like Sorcerers that does a ton of AoE damage where everyone gets low and then he just starts stunning everyone, which I think would be pretty crazy. But also, I've heard if you run him with a comp that might still use attack speed like Chronos, it could be pretty gross if you added. I think honestly, Chronos is really, really good. You just have to. It's not the Chronos comp or the champions in the Chrono that actually are good. I think it's mainly the fact that you just add legendaries into it, and that's what makes it good. So you go 6, and then you just add legendaries in, or Kale, either one. I think that's really good. And with this, with Xerath, I think that just is more true. So I have played one game this morning, just on my phone, just to kind of test some of these damage nerfs. I didn't really feel it is that much. It's been described as just like one notch up, so a lot of this for damage is on the surviving units now instead of the base damage. So instead of taking generally the same amount of damage every round, it will vary. So if you are open fording or you're just have really, really bad like champions or you can't string together anything, um, that's where it's going to hurt you the most. But if you're just putting together something out there that kills a couple champs, you're really not going to feel a difference, I don't think. I didn't really. Um, One thing that's interesting right now is in the meta, early game at least, if you can string together a 2 cost, like you're guaranteed to be fine. So I would say, regardless of what comp you're thinking you want to run or where you have your eyes on with a comp, I wouldn't worry about it right away. I would just strictly kind of just go in looking for 2 costs. I played a game where I had like a Zoe 2 and like a Leona 2, and then I ended up like going Blade Masters. So, but it got me through the early game. I had a little bit dip in the mid game, but then my bench was just kind of stacking up with a lot of Blade Masters, and then just kind of went that route. I think I got an early Irelia or something like that, and then just went that way with it. But traits, so they added a bunch of basically it just if you can add 2 spatulas to it and it can become another comp. um, they added that to it. So 9 Blade Master, 9 Dark Star, 6 Infiltrator, 6 Protector, which which is interesting. 6 Protector would be probably really good. Because I don't think Protectors are like that crazy amazing right now, but maybe that would be really good, depending on who you put it on. 9 Rebel, 8 Sorcerer. 8 Sorcerer is going to be really gross. Obviously, you just need Xerath at that point. Infiltrators will be interesting too, because there's some small infiltrator, or there's some small tanks. Like you could do two vanguards with dragon claws, so they're just crazy tanky, and then just builds all of 6 infiltrators if you got 2 spatulas or something like that. I think that would be insane. All right, champions. Caitlyn. The game I played this morning was I picked Caitlyn on purpose. And I 3-starred her. I was in one of the new realm things. Did they have that on here? Oops. I don't know if they had the other. Oh yeah, they did. I had the trade sector. I played this one and I 3-starred Caitlyn. Took longer than I thought to get it, but I got the main piece of it really fast, and it ended up being really good. It did a ton of damage when it went popped off. I had like Sojins and um, shoot, I don't remember whatever else like RFC on it as well. Not that she really needs it, but I was playing against a bunch of sorcerer comps that were in the corner, so it kind of helped. But that was crazy. Like it wasn't just I 3-starred Caitlyn because she was a low cost and I could just re-roll forever. It was essentially I 3-starred Ash, I 3-starred randomly a TF, Caitlyn, I think, and maybe one more. Like you just 3-star like crazy in that game mode. It's nuts. So it was really fun. I almost 3-starred my Jhin as well because I ran like a Vanguard. Um, no, that was yesterday. I ran that Vanguard comp, but I also ran it this morning too as well. I ended up just it works really well. It works really nicely. Um, I put a video out on YouTube yesterday about that exactly, that comp. And I think it's going to work really well still because Vanguards weren't really touched. Neither were snipers. So Celestial Heal went up, which is, I think, super good, needed. Cybernetic health and damage. Uh, I honestly don't think this is like that crazy. I think this will still be really good, especially since, as we'll see, Irelia didn't get touched at all. So that's, the main part of it anyway. Especially the 3 cost wasn't changed, and I like to run 3 cybernetics anyway, so I think it'll be fine. And then I don't think it really is gonna. I think it'll still be a really good comp. Really excited about this cybernetic though. Change at the 4 cost. Because I feel like I like to run celestial a lot, especially 4 of them. So celestial protector will be a lot better now. Um, Mech Pilot. Okay, so what I understand about this is basically it's actually a buff through level 5 of the Mech Pilot. So you have 1 stars, 1 star, 1 star, 2 star. That's level 2. 1 star, 2 stars, 2 stars. That'd be level 3, all the way up to 9. So in the early game, if you have 2 star, which is like obviously the most common, that'd be a 6-star mech, and that would technically have like 90 less health or something like that. So it's honestly not bad. It's not a huge nerf overall, unless you get up to like 7, 8, 9 is where the big nerfs come in, where it's like 1,000 health or something like that. But you can also add health to your mech pilots, which would kind of get it up to a close area anyway. And I usually run super tanky mech pilot anyway, so but the spell damage did get impacted quite a bit. So as you can see that 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7. There you go. So that's a cutoff is, oh, just the ending two, huh? That is interesting. 8 and so 300 off. I don't think they really nerfed it that much, to be honest. I think if you still got like a super high level um, mech, you'd be just fine. In fact, as we'll see in a bit, they kind of buffed the champions a little bit. So I think they're just trying to shift the power from the mech to also the champions, so that like when they pop out, they're actually useful, and then you can also use them in other comps as well. Mercenary Visualization, indicate purchase. Oh, so they're just gonna have a 1, 2, and 3 basically, so you can see how many upgrades you have on it. Nice quality of life thing. Space Pirates item drop. I never hold Space Pirates until 4. I'll add them in a comp every once in a while. Um, for a Mana Reaver early, I usually always sub out Darius for Kassadin at some point. So whatever. Sorcerer spell power. The 4 cost got increased by 5%. Um, yeah, I think the trend here is that Sorcerer and especially especially Star Guardian Sorcerer, got a huge buff overall in this patch because it didn't get nerfed, and all this is super nice because this is what you run. I don't like running that comp just because it's so meta, honestly. Not to be that guy, but it is really good and it's going to be really good. And if you get a bunch of Star Guardians early, and you don't see someone jumping on it, I mean, roll down and just get what you can because it's going to be really good. All right, tier 1 champs. Caitlyn, ace in the hole damage. Oh yeah, so I used this today. This 3000 felt really nice. So did this 1500. So you like I two starter on the second roll, and I was just one shotting everyone. I think I went on like a 6 game win streak with that, and like a 2-star whatever champion I had with it. So 2-star champions early, no matter what they are. If you get 2 of them, just pick it up. It carries you through the early game. I don't think it really matters because you just want to kill champs. You just want to end it up if it's like a 1-on-1 loss, like you're not going to take very much damage at all. You probably take less damage than you used to because the base damage is so low that all of the damage is on champions now left over. So just build up your bench and just 2-star what you can. Xayah, I didn't feel this very much. I played a 2-star Xayah this morning. I put a um, even put a static shiv on her, and it was good. She carried me through the early game, but I mean, I didn't feel like it was oppressive by any means. So I think it was probably a needed buff, good, nothing too crazy. Oh my gosh, my mouse is terrible. Zoe Stun Duration. Basically, what I understand that this was just like no one ever bought her, and she was terrible stat wise. So they just buffed her early game a little bit, gave her a little more damage, and if you do 3-star her, um, her stun duration is absolutely insane now. 4 seconds. Like matches run like 15 seconds max. That's such a long time. Um, okay, 2-star champions. Annie. This is them buffing Annie up a little bit. They can't add attack damage or armor because that affects the mech directly. Or health, sorry, not armor. So that's why they did armor and then the shield. They want this to be the new frontliner for sorcerer comps to be able to be the sole kind of centerpiece for the tank essentially. I think it'll suffice. I think it'll be cool. I like actually stacking. I like putting a Sojin on my mech, and I like doing it with Annie. So she pops out, and if they do focus her, basically she just shields twice and just doesn't die, and then everyone else can do damage to kind of finish everyone off. But um, and then as we'll see, shields aren't as good in overtime anymore. But I don't know if I missed that or if we go down and we'll see it at the bottom. But so she's not as good in overtime, but this will still help a lot. That's really good. Darius mana went down. I think that if you built Infiltrator Darius, I think it would be absolutely insane. He would pop off really quick. Infiltrator and a tier or something, and then like death cap. I don't know. Um, or you could honestly do Chalice, as we'll see later, with the item changes. And if you did Chalice, Infiltrator, and like death cap, it would be really good. Anyway, Lucian attack damage went down. He was like the best 2 costs in the game, so they just fixed that. I think he'll still be good. Merkon, Grand Entrance. So this one's super weird. I didn't get a chance to use this morning, but it seems okay. I've heard it explained a couple different ways. Basically, the idea is this is 2 radius like from him, right? So that's like a huge distance, and it knocked up like all the front line, right? That's what it typically would do, which was fantastic. So now the idea is that depending on where you place him, he should hit some backline people. Not your Caitlyn or Syndra, as we'll see, her range got increased, but we will see that a lot of like those mid-range carries are going to get affected by this more, and I think it might be good. Because the mana went down as well, it's going to feel like he's alting as much as maybe when he had just a Sojin or something like that. So if you put, I put 2 on him before and it was really cool, it was great. Maybe if you just put 1 Sojin on him, um, you might see him start bouncing around the map too, which will kind of be cool. It kind of feel like how he feels in the game, where he's not just, just doing the same place right below his feet, but now he's going to be doing whoever's farthest away within 3 hexes. So it'll be interesting. I think it'll be cool. We'll see though. It could be terrible because of this, because this is a huge change. But they did take 50 mana off, so that's a difference. Shen. So there's a couple changes in here that are, I think, directly going to be relevant for the trading universe, where basically you can 3 cost things a lot easier, and you can kind of choose what you want to 3 cost. I think that there are some 1 cost now that are worth 3 cost or 3 sorry. I would be very curious, honestly, if there's some type of roll down comp, hyper roll, where you just hyper roll 1 cost and you do like Shen, Zoe, and like TF or something like that, and maybe Caitlyn, and run like a Chronos sorcerer comp that is weirdly really good. So that's a thing that I would be interested in, because this 5 seconds is a lot. That's a long time, as we said before, how much 4 seconds stun was. You put a Dragon's Claw on him and he's not dying. Shaco, he got just nerfed in general, mainly just at his 4 cost. He actually got buffed at 1 cost, which is interesting. So if you got an early Shaco, you might as well just toss him in there, and he's probably going to do a decent amount of damage. I think this 300 to this 250 kind of counteracts this damage, because it's percentage damage, right? So a lot more higher percentage on a lower number is, going to be equaled out pretty easily. I haven't done the math on it, but I would assume that's kind of why they did that. So it doesn't feel too much different. It just isn't the game ender at the end. So I think that will be pretty good. Syndra range went up, so once again, Sorcerer, super good. That's going to be so gross, because a lot of champs like Kale, or even Xayah, or just like high DPS champions, if you can put an RFC on them and they can just sit in the corner and never stop attacking, it's huge. So the fact that she can be further back or even in the mid lane or in the mid range area and never stop attacking just means her uptime on her ult's going to be up more too. So I think it's a direct buff. Um, and if I remember correctly, I think that they wanted to buff her ultimate too, but I don't see it in here as well. So that may have changed because this was probably too powerful already. Um, Fizz health attack speed. So he's more of an infiltrator now. This is a big attack speed buff. So now he will be attacking a lot, which is great, because I didn't find him to be that exciting before. He does do damage, but it's just not like a 4 cost. Like, yeah, this is doing so much. His ult is super great, but the thing is, like, typically if you're running him, you're running with mechs. And if you're running with mechs, that means that his ult goes off after there's like most of the team is gone. So even though it's a huge AoE, you only hit like 3 people because that's all that's left. So it's like not that exciting or satisfying to play usually. So I think that they kind of wanted to push him to be able to play into infiltrator comps as well and actually be worth it. Um, Jinx attack speed went up. Rebels are not good, so they try to fix that. I don't think they're still that great. I think you'd have to go Blaster Jinx maybe. Rebels, I think that would be probably a decent way to go. Um, or maybe Blade Master and oh man, I don't even know. Yeah, it's not super great. Rebels aren't in a great spot right now. They're pretty decent. I think they'll be like they're flexible enough to where you could probably figure something out that would work. Um, Soraka Hell, Soraka Wish Healing, 20,000 healing if you 4-star. And I've heard that even if you get this, like there's so much healing reduction in the game right now that like this kind of is okay, still good, but like not game breaking somehow. And you'd think it would be. So I think it would be really good. I've heard that if you tank Soraka, you just put a bunch of tank items on her, then it can be really good. Put her in the front line, make her just take damage, which gives her mana, right? And then she autos and gets mana. Um, I've heard that's really good. So you could probably get away with a 2-star and maybe that being all right if you did that. I still don't think that she's that great, especially for a 4 cost. Another bad 4 cost, Wukong. I feel like there was only a couple good 4 cost units, which kind of led to all these problems. But so they're buffing 4 cost, which is great. I'm glad they're not nerfing too much and they're buffing instead, because 4 cost I think should be really good, especially if you're running 8 comps instead of 9. I think that they're vital. So Wukong cyclone damage went up. This isn't like the biggest buff in the world actually because this is spread out. This is 300 damage or 400 damage over the expanding time of how long that they were basically ulting the whole time and moving around and hitting other people. So they're really not doing that much damage on people. It is AoE though, still at the same time. I think it would be really cool if they extended his range, like half a hex or something like that, so that you hit more people. I think then it would be really good, considering like Cho'Gath, he hit such a large area and it's just like poof, one deal, and maybe that's why they don't do it because it'd be too similar. But um, Vel'Koz, Lifeform, Disintegration Ray. Okay, so this is technically a buff, even though he doesn't shoot the Disintegration Ray very long. Apparently, he keeps it on units better now. Um, through playtesting, I've heard this is actually a buff, like I said, but it is a direct nerf technically, I guess, numbers wise. 5 tier Aurelion Soul is really tanky now. So I think if you're gonna run Rebels, you're reliant on a 5 cost now, which I think is not ideal. If you're reliant on a 5 cost, I don't think that that's a good place to be with the comp. But we'll see. It's still good. I think you can put this in any comp now. I think it would be super helpful because it's tankier. It's gonna last. If that gets 2 more of its ult off, that's a decent amount of damage it's getting off overall. So I think it'd be worth it. I think it'd be worth it tossing in just about anything. I think if you toss it in, especially something like a sorcerer comp would be really good. If you could get one spat and then toss it in as your 8th, that'd be pretty insane. Um, Chalice of Favor, no gives. Okay, so this is supposed to be probably the most broken part of the patch. Chalice of Favor now grants mana to holder. So if you were to Chalice stack Sorcerer or Star Guardian Sorcerers, I think that is like S tier best comp in the game right now. Just because with this, you can't, you have everyone clumped close enough together anyway. Everyone within like 1 square gets 10 mana, I believe it is. So you basically you get 2 of them, and then you have like a Sojins for the whole team. Or you have like, not a Sojin, yeah, whatever, the double tier item. Deathblade, starting stacks at 2. I think this probably is a buff overall. And I think it's strictly a blaster item now. Um, if you stuck one of these on each one of your blasters, I think that they would end up with so much AD by the end of the round. I just don't think you could lose as long as you have a decent front line. Um, yeah, oh yeah, because it stacks by 30 now instead of 15, but it goes down by 2 stacks to start with. So you have to get a kill, right? Or I think assist. Or if it's just a kill, I forget, then that would be a little bit harder, but I still think with blasters, I think that'd probably be the best thing. If you want a super high hyper scaling Jinx, where she does no damage and then she does a million damage by the end of the round, this might be gross on her. Okay, Frozen Heart is broken now. Build that on all your tanks that take mana. Rapid fire cannon. So they did this purely just quality of life buff for any champion that's that's melee that would be fun to have as a range champion. So it takes a 1 hex to a 3 hex. So essentially you could have a Master Yi with a whole hex between him and your front line and then the person. So um, it gives you quite a bit of flexibility with champs now to where you you could put an RFC on, like I said, Yi, or I think that um, Xin Zhao would probably be an insane choice to put that on as well. But okay. Shroud, Mort loves this item, and basically they buffed it, I think, because of that. No, but they added a zero point 0.5 hex, so now because of how the hexes lay, you're hitting 2 full hexes for sure, which might even be more if it goes in each direction. I'm not really sure if it is just 1 hex overall or whatever, but that might be 2 or 3 hexes that it's affecting. So if this meta is just full of um, sorcerer comps and that's the best thing, Shroud of Stillness will be insane because it kills the mana, right? So they can't cast, and that's what their whole thing is, right? Star Guardian and sorcerers, when they cast, everything ends. So if you can hold them from that, that's super good. I don't know if the stacks, but you could essentially have a champ that you can move around and then put that there on him and just move it around and follow the Star Guardians wherever they are, grouped up, and just I think that's the counter. Tier Guardian or Tier the Goddess mana. So the mana went down on Tier the Goddess, the item, um, overall, but the full items weren't affected in what they regenerate, just the base mana. So uh, it'd be 15 or 30 instead of 40, whatever it is on there. So Zeke's Herald, this one's gonna be really gross. I think they tried to get rid of the mech infiltrators, and then they made items in ways to make it really, really good still. Um, because you're really only stacking probably a couple infiltrators, like Kaisa and Shaco, and let's just say Fizz for now, because they all have pretty high attack speed, and their damage dealers by their attack damage or by their auto attacks. Um, Realistically, I think that this could be really good if you got a couple of these, considering the health and the damage you get from it. I think it would be really good to stack those on some infiltrators or even some vanguards, honestly, because they just do a lot of damage too. So I think it's the most efficient item in the game, technically, because you're getting armor, you're getting health, or you're getting damage, you're getting health, and then you're getting attack speed on top of it. When like if you think like CZ Rot Portal, or no, I mean Titan's Resolve technically just gives you uh it gives you stacking damage, I suppose, but otherwise it gives you just attack speed and armor, unless you like get to 50, which you just never do. Um, I don't know. I think for just like straight up hard numbers, I think it's probably one of the most efficient items in the game for just stats that it just rawly gives. There's not any special effect, so I mean, it might be good to stack this with like a Quicksilver or something like that. Um, but I mean, it just does make your champion just better and the ones around it too. But it is only 1 hex now, and it's still line, so but it is just like so much more. So I think overall it's probably still really good, but maybe not your whole backline's not getting the speed up. Shields in overtime, they're just not as good. So whatever. It was just more of honestly, this is borderline bug fix because it would just win games or it would win rounds. Okay, cybernetics doesn't matter. That's just quality of life. Quality of life. This is nice, not huge. Front lines will be knocked up a quarter of a second faster, which is cool. Unless you make him an infiltrator, which would also be pretty dope. Fix issues, taunt voices. Okay, add additional Deathblade. During unit will no longer release other Deathblade counters. These are big ones. This one especially. Fix bug where a super mech it wasn't benefiting from Demolish's trait and the infiltrator trait on a wayboard. I felt this and I was confused, but I didn't really say anything because it just still was really good. The mech was, so it just like sometimes it did feel like he was attacking faster, and I honestly was like, is this the items I have on it this time or what's going on? But it wasn't consistent because it wasn't every time. It was just on away boards. So now your mech will attack so much faster every single time because those first like chunk of attacks is so important because everyone's focusing down your mech. So whatever damage you can get out right away is huge. That means you're going to ult more because on all away boards you probably weren't ulting as much or whatever. Um, Demolition trait. That means Sojin is still going to be super good on this as a mech. Demolition trait bonuses when on a wayboard as well, so that's going to be huge because being able to stun everyone, if that's what you have, if that's what you're running, then that's different too. That can be really good, but it still doesn't affect when Mystic and or like Chrono or something like that on away boards, which is something they're putting out with knowing that issue, which is too bad because to be completely honest, I love running Chrono with Super Mech and just putting pure tank items on him and just letting him eventually just have crazy amounts of attack speed and just wrecking everyone because he just already does so much damage that if you just give him enough time to get, I think he has to last 8 seconds, and then once he reaches 8 seconds, he does so much damage that he just ends the match pretty much because he just has so much attack speed at that point from the four and four Chronos got buffed, so that would even be better. So I would recommend that, or you go 6 Chrono if you can go 9, and that's insane. All right, fix bug where summoned units pulled in by threats, your portal or complete player damage. Gotcha. Okay, so that's not a big deal. Kane spawns 2 rows closer, so you can see on mobile. That's great. To be honest, I noticed that, so that'll be super nice. Mobile corner. I'm guessing those are just visual stuff. I don't really care about that too much. Okay, cool. So that's the deal. I would say that mainly the big thing to know is build Sorcerer and build Star Guardian if you want to just continually grind and grow and get better. Not better, but higher rank. I think that would be a pretty straightforward way. Otherwise, the comps that we've been running lately weren't affected here, which is good actually. Um, in any way, actually, they weren't affected, so that means they're still going to be good. Games are going to end a little bit quicker, which can be an issue, I guess. But I think that if you know what you're doing and what comp you're going to run, I think you get 2 costs early. Doesn't matter which ones. And then as soon as you see a pattern, jump on that the best you can. Run that comp through, and I think you'll be fine. I think you just have to make sure you're kind of committed by stage 3-ish, um, middle 3-4. Start making sure you're kind of committed at that point, and then I think you'll end up top 4, especially if you can get one of the decently high comps. But if you're running that Irelia Cornerstone comp, which I think is pretty easy to run, um, or if you're running Vanguard snipers, I think it's super consistent and easy to run too. Um, and no one runs it, so I think Vanguard sometimes you'll get challenged up, but snipers rarely. So I think that's a good comp to run as well. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I don't think a lot's going to change. I think that um, there's enough changes in the items, I think, is where the biggest thing is going to be. I think that if you can get Chalice of Favor stacking, that's super good. So I think if you get mana or Tear of the Goddess, Negatron Cloak, and BF Sword, I think are going to be, you just want to always get one of those three. And I think you'll always be good because you need Magic Resist, you need Chalice of Favor, and Frozen Heart's good. So you can build that out of it if you just get a random um, armor. And then also BF Sword being able to build GA or whatever that may be, Sojin or so I think that that's going to be kind of the ideal situation. I think that bow is good too because if you have bow um, and Negatron Cloak, then you can get mana regain that way as well. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of changes here. I think they're pretty good changes. I think some of them are pretty spicy, including RFC, which will be fun to play with and find a comp that works really. I want to RFC a mech and put it in the back line and put it just vanguards in front of it. I think I think that would be so fun. Oh yeah. So yeah, hopefully we can get some awesome games going the rest of the week and next week, and test some stuff out and see how this works, and test out some weird comps and see if they work like RFC Mech. But until then, we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Lunchtime League, and we'll see you tomorrow.